Hello, and you are very welcome to Atlantic Bridge's special panel discussion for the Intertrade Ireland conference. My name is Martina Fitzgerald, and I am the CEO of Scale Ireland, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation over the next half hour or so. Now, we are going to delve into the scale and scope of Atlantic Bridge's investments here and also some wider investment trends. We're also going to talk to two CEOs of two very exciting startups. They're different, but they're also very interesting. And they both have an ESG, an environmental, social, and governance focus, and also their university spin out. So that will make for a really interesting discussion. So without further ado, I'm just going to get straight down to proceedings and introduce our special guest this morning. So we're joined by Conor O'Sullivan, who is an investment director with Atlantic Bridge, and his job is to focus on identify and evaluate investment propositions and opportunities for the University Bridge funds. We're also delighted to be joined by Sandra Healy, the founder of Inclusio, a science-based, data-driven inclusion and diversity platform designed to measure and enhance company culture. And I also want to welcome the CEO of Equal One, Jason Lynch, which is a silicon quantum computing company whose technology is particularly suited to quantum artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I'm dying for you to explain all this later, Jason. So you're all very welcome. Conor, we'll start with you, and we'll start with the focus of today, Atlantic Bridge's investment, the scale and scope. Can you tell us a bit about your funds?
Sure. Thanks, Martina. Great to be here with you and Sandra and Jason. So Atlantic Bridge is a global growth technology VC firm with 1.3 billion euros under management, and we've raised 8 funds, been investing in startups in Europe and the US over the last 2 decades. We invest right from pre-seed through to later stage growth equity rounds, and I'll go into a bit of detail about the funds I represent at Atlantic Bridge, focusing on early stage companies. Our investment teams are in Dublin, that's where we're headquartered, in London, in Paris, in Munich, in Palo Alto and Beijing. And everything that we invest in, we very much focus on deep technology companies that have really good teams and technologies and insights that others in the market don't have. And that's what we look for fundamentally, particularly in the underlying technology. We really delve into that and the teams that manage that technology and help the company to scale up.
Now, there are many founders watching in today, and they want to know, how do you persuade someone like you to invest in them? Let's put it bluntly. Obviously, Sandra and Jason have been successful, but what do you look for when you for that first meeting with the founder?
Well, certainly it's about the unique insights that those founders have. So in the case of Sandra and Inclusio, Sandra's international network and domain expertise in diversity and inclusion was a really important factor for us when looking at who's leading the business and how can that company scale. And your networks are incredibly important, and your deep domain expertise and understanding of the technology and what customers want was incredibly important for us. When it comes to Equal One, the technology and the management team led by Jason around how do you take that technology to market, which is very deep technology, has to go through a number of cycles of testing, but the team had done that before in the semiconductor world with a number of different products, and so that was incredibly important for us. So it's those sort of differentiated insights into the business that others don't have. That's what we fundamentally look for, and an ambition to scale the company from very early stage. So as I said, I represent the early stage funds at Atlantic Bridge, and we are primarily focused on spin-outs from Irish universities and the research base and ecosystems within Ireland.
And I'm sure you get a huge amount of requests for meetings and, for funding applications and the like, for investment applications.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we're looking at many tens every week, and it's a really good sign of the growth within the Irish research ecosystem. So we've raised 2 funds now, the University Bridge funds. The first fund was in 2016, that was 60 million euros. We're now on our second fund, which is 80 million. We've invested in 40 deep tech businesses over the last 6 years. And we're seeing some really, really good and interesting opportunities coming out of all of the Irish institutions and research bases, which is a really good sign for the future. And we're looking forward to deploying more capital over the coming years with our second fund.
Well, Sandra, you did get him to sign on the dotted line in Atlantic Bridge. So can you tell the founders out there about your company and the investors and what is its core proposition?
Thanks, Martina, and thanks for the opportunity to share my story today. So I might just very briefly start from the beginning. So I spent 20 years in the telecoms industry working across the UK and Ireland before I went into DCU, where I spent 5 years. And one of the things I realized is when I was leading on diversity and inclusion is I had no way to evidence the impact of the work I was doing. So when it came to sales and customer delivery and customer experience, I had really clear KPIs, yet here I was doing this very meaningful work in diversity and inclusion with no way to evidence the impact to the organization. So it got me thinking. I was studying organizational psychology in DCU at the time, and I started thinking there has to be a better way to do this. There has to be a way to combine the technology and the psychology in a way that would bring a scientific, evidence-based approach to diversity and inclusion. So I went into DCU with this idea in my head. I said, you've probably only got me for about 2 years because I want to build this technology. And they said, absolutely, let's do it together. So backed by InterTradeIreland, over 4 years in research and development, we spun out Inclusio on the 1st of December in 2020. So that was a very exciting but daunting day, I would have to say. And I actually did my first pitch on the 15th of December, and I think I did about 40 pitches to eventually get my funding. But what's the software? So essentially what we've done is it's AI driven, and we have developed a software platform that provides data analytics and insights around organizations on diversity and inclusion.
So you're measuring, what they're doing, and that's very useful information.
Yes. So there's 3 kind of core components to it. So the first thing we do is we collect over 100 demographic data points, and through all our research, one of the things we discovered is that people do not like disclosing personal things about themselves and having that attached to their HR records. So we very deliberately have designed the platform that it sits outside the organization. And the second thing we do is we have combined 24 scientific metrics that are all linked to culture and diversity and inclusion in the organization. So that allows us to create benchmarks and baseline data for the organization, so they can get an understanding of where are we now, but they can also then start to build a plan around their ambition around diversity and inclusion. And the third aspect of it is that we built a separate content management system where we deliver nudge learning, so articles, videos, forums, to help people understand about human differences and build empathy and understanding. So it's an end-to-end solution for organizations.
Now, Jason, Equal One, quantum computing. Can you tell us exactly what your deep tech solution is and what's the end game?
Absolutely. Thanks, Martina. Great to be here. So essentially, we're building quantum computers. So I guess we'll start with what is a quantum computer, maybe. And the promise of quantum is basically to give massively increased amounts of compute power in the future. Compute power that we probably can't even imagine today. And this comes with, and this is the only technical term I'll use today, with a qubit. We replace digital bits that are in today's computers with what's called a qubit. And I suppose the unique differentiator for Equal One is we're building those qubits on commercially available processes. So everything we build on is available today. It's a standard off-the-shelf product. So if you look then at what is the promise of quantum, so there is estimates that quantum can go to potentially $1 trillion in the next few decades. Things like drug discovery, so simulating new chemicals for drug discovery, new chemicals for batteries, being able to model airplanes in a more energy efficient way. So really, the promise of quantum is massive, and we're taking an approach that uses an off-the-shelf solution. And because of that, we can be much more cost effective, much smaller. And really, we have a vision to deliver quantum computing to everybody.
And can I ask you, obviously, this kind of deep tech solution requires major investment. You've already got your 10 million. in investment. What are your plans in terms of going to market and the like?
Sure. Yeah. So let me start with, I mean, first of all, Atlantic Bridge have been with us from the very start, and you know, the support that they've given has been huge. We have Enterprise Ireland also from the very start. We have two international investors, B2V, who are now called Matterwave in Germany, came on in September, and 808 Ventures is an Australian VC firm who are also an investor in Equal One. We had a very exciting announcement just before Christmas. We won the European Innovation Council Accelerator Award. So we won 10 million investment from the European Commission. And the purpose of the EIC Accelerator is to scale deep tech startups like ourselves to unicorns within Europe. So we'll be going out here in the next 6 to 9 months. We need to match some of that money. So we'll be looking at doing, you know, something around a 20 million round. And that will really get us to the big technology demonstrator in the next 18 to 24 months that can show, yes, the approach we've taken can have a real impact on solutions. Now, we are engaged today trying to understand their use cases, you know, we're partnered with MasterCard down the road in a disruptive technology innovation fund project. So very important to understand the needs of potential customers.
And I meant to ask Sandra that when do you go to market, or when will your offering be available to companies?
It's already available, Martina. So the 1st of December, thankfully, we had customers lined up. We were testing with customers while we were in the university. So we had Sodexo, PayPal, Allianz, Worldwide Care, and many others working with us while we were in the university testing. So thankfully, when we spun out on that 1st of December, we've had customers, we onboard customers on a weekly cycle. And we're looking to deliver just under 900K now for our first year.
And that's what you had, an extensive pilots programs with major companies from the get-go. And I know that Conor mentioned your networks, but you did achieve something special in relation to that made it easier.
Yeah, I suppose I would be seen as one of the thought leaders in diversity and inclusion in Ireland, and in fairness in many other parts of the world as well. But I have built up a network and a lot of expertise throughout that. So that allowed us to, there's a lot of goodwill, I would say, in diversity and inclusion. So that allowed us to get access to user groups and to organizations. So we worked with over 35 different organizations between research and development and testing. And we wanted to build software that people want to use. That's how I describe it. You know, that was my number one goal, was that we built software that people like to use. It was intuitive, they understand it. And in fact, some people have told us that they love the software. And for me, that's the magic in it, the fact that it's taken us so long to bring it to the market.
Now, before I ask you both about your ESG focus, I am going to bring Conor in. Conor, can I ask you, in relation to companies like Inclusio, like Equal One, and they'll be listening very carefully, what does Atlantic Bridge do? What role does it have in terms of future funding rounds and its relationship with companies like the two that are on our panel?
Yeah, we certainly want to follow our initial money into companies, and that is our strategy to back our best companies for as long as we can, as long as the companies need that money. It's very important at the early stages to build syndicates around companies. So we spend a lot of our time as a seed stage fund going and talking to other investors who may come in later stage rounds and showcasing our companies to them, you know, right across Europe and the US. And that's a very important job that all investors have, and we work very closely with our portfolio companies to do that. We can't, as a seed fund, and most seed funds would say the same thing, we can't back every company all of the time. So, you know, you do have to make challenging decisions. As you know, in our portfolio, in the first fund, there are around 30 companies in that fund. There's a lot of companies, you know, all looking for funding. So we do have to make difficult decisions. But you know, we have a very long-standing relationships with all our portfolio companies. We get very involved early on, and sometimes that's before the companies actually form and spin out of universities. So actually, before they're registered with the with Companies House, and that's what we do. We're very prepared to build teams around technologies if we see the opportunity there, and we will certainly help all the management teams when it comes to growing the management team and also finding customers and other investors. So we're very, very hands-on. We take that approach very early on in the companies.
Now, investors like Atlantic Bridge will be very interested in ESG, and more it's becoming an increasing focus, the environmental, social and governance. Both of your companies, Sandra and Jason, have an ESG focus. Jason, can I start with you on that? Because it mightn't be so obvious to people looking in today.
Sure, yeah. So we're focused, I suppose, mainly on the E part and the environmental. And I suppose the bit that we're focused on, so if you look at big compute solutions today, the output power, the power, electricity, and the carbon that they're consuming is just growing at an unbelievable rate. So there's a stat that says one of the very big AI models, GPT-3 it's called, for that to train that, it took the equivalent of 5 cars, the output of 5 cars across their entire lifetime, just to train that extremely powerful AI model. We're very focused on bringing a new trajectory to AI. So what quantum offers is it offers to put AI on a sustainable trajectory and to move that that consumption down orders of magnitude so that we can get continue to increase the compute power, but do it at a sustainable rate of carbon consumption.
And can I ask you, do you think that's a major selling point for investors to hear of that focus?
I think it is. It is absolutely. I mean, any investor now really, we will get asked what are the strategies around ESG, what are the policies, and so absolutely, it's a key selling point for Equal One.
Now, Sandra, the name suggests it all, Inclusio.
Yep.
So you most definitely have a very strong ESG focus and solution.
Yeah, I would say we are the S, so the social side. And certainly what I've seen over the last probably 2 to 3 years is much more of a focus on the non-financial aspect of annual reports. And I think that's what's really started to drive the focus now on the S in the ESG. And I think it's stakeholders within the organization and also outside the organization. So that's what we see in our research. So everything from, for example, from employees who want to work for businesses where it's a psychologically safe environment and they value their human differences, right the way through to customers, shareholders, investors, board members now. So that's what we see is there's more requirements now and requests for independent oversight and evidence of ethical and sustainably running businesses.
And this is only going to increase in terms of interest from shareholders, staff, investors, but also potential staff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think 5 years ago when I came up with this idea, I described it as I still have my 10 slides of where I talked about diversity, inclusion and compliance. And I don't think we were there. I think diversity and inclusion at that point was still nice to have and not anymore. That's where we're seeing, like, even if you look at what's happening in financial services now, and in some respects, Ireland are a leader in this, where financial services companies are expected now to produce mandatory reports around diversity and inclusion and culture every year. And we're starting to see more of that. So it's, in some respects, we're just at the beginning. And if you look at the market conditions, then we have Black Lives Matter, we've Me Too movement, we have gender pay gap reporting now in Ireland. And all of those things are driving more demand for an evidence-based approach to running your business.
And from an investor perspective, Conor, this is very important and probably going to be more important. I see in the EU, they're developing a taxonomy at the moment. So this is something that companies like your own will be monitoring very closely.
Absolutely. Sandra was just talking about particularly how we all hear about big public companies and PLCs. There's a very, very strong focus on diversity, inclusion and ESG, right at board level. But we as investors investing in early stage startups and SMEs also have a job to make sure that those companies are focused on ESG related issues and how do they have that as you know, in terms of plans at board level as well. So whenever we're doing due diligence on a company, those type of policies, even within a less than 5 people team, you know, we are looking to see whether those policies have been formed. If not, how do we help them form policies around ESG? And how do we make sure that that is tracked and monitored and reported on over time? So it's a very strong focus from ourselves as a fund manager, and of course also from the investors who invest in our fund as well. There's an increasing focus on that from them. So you know, we have a job to make sure that all the companies we invest in have a plan, address the issues, and are addressing them in the future as well.
Now, Jason, research collaborations, you're a spin out from UCD and Sandra from DCU. Obviously, research collaborations domestically and internationally are very important. Can you talk us through, especially for something that so deep tech that you're developing?
Sure. So the collaboration is massively important for us. So we've again, we're a spin out from UCD. We're based in Nova UCD. We're very close ties to UCD still. We have a disruptive technology innovation fund project ongoing where UCD is a partner along with us. And I suppose more than that, the talent pipeline is massive, right? For quantum, you know, basically we need to rewrite the whole software stack. So it's a new, you know, whole new education programs. So the talent pipeline coming out who are, you know what quantum computing is, have an education in it, is massive. We're looking at hiring up to 30 people this year. We're very multidisciplinary, from silicon chip design to software, both machine learning, but all the way through the stack, all the way to mechanical engineering. So we have a big need for highly skilled workforce. So the link there with the research, but also with the workforce coming out here in the next few years who will be educated in quantum is key for us.
And it's very strategic on both fronts. Yeah. Sandra, yourself, you spun out of DCU. Can you tell us about that and what that meant? And also you have also links to other university networks, I think it's fair to say.
We do, Martina. And I think when I describe Inclusio and our 4 years in research and development, I really don't think we could have built something as comprehensive if we weren't within the ecosystem of the university. So we were able to tap into some of the best of organizational psychologists. We were able to tap into Professor Alan Smeaton's network in the Insight Center and get some support around UX design. And we still have ongoing projects now working with Ulster University and some of the academics in DCU focused on an all-island approach to diversity and inclusion. So that's one of our active projects at the moment. And the other one I'm working on is with Stanford University. So Professor Lawrence Fung in Stanford University is the director of the Center of Excellence around Neurodiversity. So we're working with Ulster University and Professor Lawrence Fung on developing and advancing the research around diversity and inclusion in work, but in particular focused on neurodiversity. And we collaborate with lots of different universities across the globe. I described that, we're a spin out from a university. We want to maintain those links because that's what brings the science and the integrity of the research that we produce to our platform.
And kind of from a perspective, as Jason said, from a pipeline of talent, and also from internationalizing, universities are also critical to the ecosystem, which sometimes they don't get the credit for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think internationally, Ireland's universities are very well recognized for the talent that is there, and the research talent. And all of the quality of researchers that are then actually spinning out into and starting companies and joining companies. So we're seeing a lot more interest from international investors as well as international companies who want to collaborate with Irish universities and develop intellectual property with those universities because of the unique talent that sits within those universities. And other research centres, like you just mentioned, Insight. So that's a fantastic thing for Ireland. It's very, very important as we think about, developing startup talent here and being alongside and better than Paris and Berlin. We want to see that happen in Ireland and have that international reputation.
And your fund has obviously strong connections and links with all the major universities, I think.
That's right, yeah. So, we work very closely with all of the innovation teams, particularly at, our university partners, UCD, Trinity, UCC, and NUI Galway. But we work with all of the Irish research institutions and their tech transfer offices to find the best talent and the great ideas that are spinning out of those universities.
Okay, so to Jason and Sandra, a final, your plans for the next year, 1 to 2 years, briefly. Jason.
Sure. So we're going to be very focused on fundraising, growing the team, delivering on this, technology demonstrator that hopefully will put us in a very good position then to move into productization.
Okay, and the very best of luck to you with that. Martina. We'll be watching very closely. And Sandra.
Yeah, very similar, I would say, to Jason. It's focused on building the team. So Atlantic Bridge, I have to say, have been fantastic with funding us. They led our seed funding round. I'm going back in to meet the team now next week to talk about what happens beyond that. We're applying for EIC funding. Jason and I were sharing the war stories about that. It's very heavy going, but very rewarding, I think, if we manage to secure that. So the focus for us is moving into new markets, building the foundational team here, attracting the right talent into the organization and creating the right structure that will allow us now to bring Inclusio into the new markets. For our ambition is to be the platform and the go-to platform for fairness and transparency and equity in every workplace in the world. And we have a very ambitious plan from now to 2026, very well documented, that's going to help us get there. So.
Okay, well, they're the best advertisements for their own companies, and obviously they're taking their moment in the spotlight. What about the wider investment trends now in terms of the market?
We're seeing some very good opportunities within particularly healthcare in Ireland. Ireland plays host to most of the world's big pharmaceutical and medical device companies. So within health tech, we look at medical devices, digital health, and biotech. There's a very, very strong pipeline of opportunities there. So we're certainly following up on a lot of those. We're also seeing some more software coming through the university ecosystem, and Inclusio is a fantastic example of that. But we look at hardware and software and medical devices and health tech. So we look at anything that spins out that has a deep research base behind it.
I was going to say there is a deep tech focus on your fund, isn't there?
There is, absolutely. And what we mean by that, and it sometimes means different things to different people, but it is about the underlying intellectual property and research base and science behind the value proposition to customers. That can come out in the sense of hardware or software, but it is that underlying technology that we really sort of dive into and try and understand what is the differentiation of that technology and the team behind it to then take it to market. So we're seeing that. We're seeing, as I said, increased interest from international investors. They are coming to us now to talk about our portfolio companies, which is great. I think it's very important for Ireland going forward to be able to attract international investors and companies to collaborate with Irish universities and do more of that. And the ESG focus is just increasing and gaining momentum. So addressing some of those biggest challenges that we have in today's society, from sustainability to diversity and inclusion, that is key to us in terms of our pipeline of opportunities, and it's something that we really look for in all of the propositions.
And I know you'll be looking at another, 10 requests for investment this week?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
so
if not more.
If not more. So whoever is going in before him, you've got a clue of what he's looking for. Conor, the very best of luck to you and to Atlantic Bridge, and thank you for hosting this discussion this morning. And also to Sandra and to Jason, we hope to see you in person at Centre Stage at the InterTrade Ireland conference into the future, regaling your future successes. So the very best of luck to you.
Thanks, Martina.
Thanks, Martina. And thank you for joining us this morning.